Good afternoon, everybody. Devon Hillary here. Today is Father's Day, but it's also known as Autistic Day Pride. And that's what I want to talk to you on this live chat right now. According to a speech that I've created. Greetings, folks. I am Devon Ray Hillary, and I have autism. I was born and raised as a Jamaican descendant in Foxhurst of Bronx, New York, USA. I was diagnosed with autism, especially with intellectual disability, at the age of 2.5 years old. Now, what is National Autistic Pride Day? Every year, June 18th is Autistic Pride Day. Autistic Pride Day is a pride celebration for people with autism each year. Autistic Pride recognizes the importance of pride for autistic people and its role in bringing about positive changes in broader society. Although Autistic Pride Day is the 18th of June, Pride events are often held on the weekend of that year for logistical reasons, but can be held at any time during the year. Moreover, Autistic Pride refers to pride in autism and shifting views of autism from disease to difference. Autistic Pride also emphasizes the innate potential in all human phenotypic expressions and celebrates the diversity of various neurological types expressed. Autistic Pride asserts that autistic people are not impaired or damaged. Rather, they have a unique set of characteristics that supply them with many rewards and challenges, unlike their non-autistic peers. Curing autism is a controversial and political issue. The autistic community can be divided into several groups. Some seek a cure for autism, sometimes dubbed as pro-cure, while others consider a cure unnecessary or unethical, or feel that autism conditions are not harmful or detrimental. For example, it may be seen as an evolutionary adaptation to an ecological niche by some environmentalists and the more radical autism rights campaigners. What are the social and cultural aspects of autism? Autistic Pride is associated with the societal and cultural aspects of autism. Wikipedia defined this entire matter. Societal and cultural aspects of autism, or sociology of autism, come into play with recognition of autism, approaches to its support services and therapies, and how autism affects the definition of personhood. The autistic community is divided primarily into two camps: the neurodiversity movement and the pathology paradigm. The pathology para excuse me. The pathology paradigm advocates for supporting research into therapies, treatments, and or a cure to help minimize or remove autistic traits, seeing treatment as vital to help individuals with autism, while the neurodiversity movement believes autism should be seen as a different way of being, and advocates against a cure and interventions that focus on normalization, but do not oppose interventions that emphasize acceptance, adaptive skills building, or interventions that aim to reduce intrinsically harmful traits, behaviors, or conditions, seeing it as trying to exterminate autistic people and their individuality. Both are controversial in autism communities and advocacy, which has led to significant and infighting between these two camps. While the dominant paradigm is the pathology paradigm and is followed largely by autism research and scientific communities, the neurodiversity movement is highly popular among most autistic people within autism advocacy, autism rights organizations, and related neurodiversity approaches have been rapidly growing and applied in the autism research field in the last few years. What is the meaning of autism? Autism is defined as a developmental disorder of variable severity that is characterized by difficulty in social interaction and communication and by restricted or repetitive patterns of thought and behavior. Therefore, people with autism go through social communication challenges and difficulties, even being either verbal or nonverbal. Additionally, autism deals with social and communication challenges, which can all incorporate difficulty. Children and adults with autism have difficulty with verbal and nonverbal communication. For example, they may not understand or appropriately use spoken language. Around a third of people with autism are nonverbal. Gestures, eye contact, facial expressions, tone of voice, and expressions are not meant to be taken literally. Other social challenges can include difficulty with recognizing emotions and intentions in others, recognizing one's own emotions, expressing emotions, seeking emotional comfort from others, feeling overwhelmed in social situations, taking turns in conversation, and gauging personal space, distance between people. Furthermore, people with autism also have restricted and repetitive behaviors which vary across the autism spectrum. Examples: repetitive body movements such as rocking, flapping, spinning, and running back and forth. Repetitive motions with objects such as spinning wheels, shaking sticks, and flipping levers. staring at lights or spinning objects, ritualistic behaviors such as lining up objects and repeatedly touching objects in a set order, narrow or extreme interests in specific topics, and need for unvarying routine, resistance to change, same daily schedule, meal menu, clothes, and route to school, as a few examples of that. Autism has more symptoms such as hyperactivity, meaning highly active, impulsivity, meaning acting without thinking, short attention span, aggression, causing self-injury, temper tantrums, unusual eating and sleeping habits, unusual mood or emotional reactions, lack of fear, or more fear than expected, and unusual reactions to the way things sound, smell, taste, look, or feel. Autism is also linked with high rates of certain physical and mental health conditions. According from Raising Children in Australia, one of the most common problems with autism is anxiety. Anxiety is common in autistic children, and between 40 to 60% of autistic children have it. Social anxiety is one of the most common anxiety disorders. Social anxiety probably happens because autistic people often have a style of interacting that can make socializing difficult for them. People with autism also would tend to talk to themselves. Autistic Speaks says that people affected by autism like to review conversations to themselves. This can include repeating lines from their favorite movies, TV shows, or YouTube channels. We call this scripting. It is a common repetitive behavior that can be a source of comfort when the person is anxious or excited. The Mill Creek Behavioral Health Company mentions the negatives of children and teens having autism. Autism negativity includes the following: social isolation, familiar discord, difficulty forming and supporting friendships, difficulties relating and empathizing with other people, may have trouble living independently while others can live and work on their own, and sleep problems. What about pe- people with autism? About people with autism that I'm going to talk about now, including myself. To start things off about people with autism, there are things all non autistic people need to know and be aware of autistic people being on the spectrum. Here are examples concerning people with autism, which non autistic people need to know. And it is from a Psych2Go article entitled Six Things Autistic Spectrum People Want You to Know. First, it said that awareness of autism and Asperger's syndrome have dramatically increased in recent years, but so have misconceptions. With all that said, here are 6 examples of things people on the autism spectrum want you to know about them, especially about me, who also have autism. 1, we're not all geniuses. Do you believe the media stereotype that autistic people are geniuses, like in Rain Man, possessing superhuman abilities of calculation, memory, or observation. We're flattered, but this sets impossible expectations for many of us who don't have special mental abilities and struggle with everyday things like speaking, bathing, and making appointments. Raising us on a pedestal can deny the sympathy and support we need just to endure a regular life. Two, we're not all lost causes. On the other hand, do you think only of our limitations? Even well meaning experts can dismiss those on the spectrum as eternal special needs cases, making harmful judgments like he or she will never graduate, never find a partner, never get a job, or never get a driver's license. We appreciate sympathy as these goals can be very challenging for us. However, calling them impossible can deny the encouragement and guidance we need to reach our full potential. Three, we're not the same. If you've met one person on the spectrum, you've only met one person on the spectrum. Individuals on the spectrum have just as much variety as those outside it. And it's not just a simple scale from high to low functioning. We all have different profiles of symptoms, strengths, and struggles. Issues like sensory overload, physical coordination, communication, and social cues can affect us in unique ways. Also, we are not just young white boys. We can be male or female from all cultural backgrounds and at all life stages, from children and teens to loving parents and grandparents. There is no such thing as the typical autistic person. Four, we are not a threat. Social conventions like eye contact, body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, and controversial norms don't come naturally to us. We consciously memorize rules and scripts to appear normal, just like you would memorize formulas for an exam. Research shows that our behavior seems unnatural to others, which triggers negative snap judgments and avoidance. A study by Knox College revealed what habits the general population wrongly believe are creepy and suggest harmful intentions, standing too closely, making too little or too much eye contact, laughing or smiling at strange times, and discussing overly personal topics. These are common social mistakes by those on the spectrum, but they have got nothing to do with the actual markers of dangerous people who are usually charming and charismatic. We are 7 times more likely to meet law enforcement, and this often turns violent when they misinterpret our mannerisms and stress responses as suspicious or threatening. Five, we are not doing well as we appear. Does it sound exhausting to manually mic- micromanage our behavior all the time? Forcing us to conform to your bizarre world is more than exhausting. It's devastating. When you see someone on the spectrum acting normally or less autistic, what you're not seeing is the constant stress, hours of preparation beforehand, hours of burnout afterwards, endless overanalysis, years of trauma and development of major psychiatric and health problems. Our average lifespan is only 36 years, and our suicide rates are 9 times higher than the general population for adults and 28 times higher for children. Those of us considered high functioning or mild or necessarily struggling less. We are simply better at faking it. And lastly, 6, we are not a punchline. Have you ever heard the term autistic used as an insult or joke? Even with innocent intentions, this contributes to a stigma that makes it harder to be taken seriously and reach out for help. Seemingly unrelated stereotypes like the creep, the loner, the nerd, and the neckbeard can also be harmful. They don't intentionally refer to autistic people, but many of our traits overlap. So it's easy for us to fall into these prejudices. We're already trying so hard to make you comfortable, socialize properly, keep our special interests within limits, and keep regular hygiene. In fact, we're probably putting in more effort than you. These can be quite challenging for us, and dismissing us with a negative label does nothing to help. With all that explained, I am not really lecturing you, but I just want to help raise awareness and understanding in society with people with autism, especially on the day of Autistic Day Pride. Moving on to autism and independence. Independence can be challenging for autistic people, especially depending on their levels of personal state and conditions whatsoever. For most people with autism, being independent could be a challenging task to learn, grow, and cope with every day. Most people with autism would be supervised, dependent, helped, protected, and guarded by their support workers, paras, and all other supervisors. However, if people with autism have too much support and supervision and overprotection by other people, often, then it prevents them from learning independence and other competencies. It is back and forth between supporting while also being in tune with what level of independence learning is possible, and then stepping back to allow that growth to take place. Speaking of being independent, there have been independent living programs for people with disabilities learning how to become independent in life. They provide opportunities for adults with disabilities, 18 years of age and older, to learn and develop in a group setting. Sessions focus on judgment, decision making, risk taking, recognizing strengths, problem solving, self esteem, and self advocacy. Additionally, weekly topics include money management, community safety, self care, friendships, and relationships. Still more, independent living programs include learning about budgeting, nutrition and kitchen safety, decision making, problem solving, community and internet safety, stress management, and all other topics to help participants make strides toward independence. We all know that independence means the state is independent. Also, being independent means being able to take care of your own needs and to make and assume responsibility for your decisions while considering both the people around you and your environment. Moving down to autism safety and dangers. Anybody or most people in the world would find autistic people, especially me, as worse targets, praise, and baits of being any of the following dangers and negatives: underlooked, disliked and hated, offended, picked on, threatened, insulted, traumatized, ignored, scorned off, both misinterpreted and misunderstood, accused, misjudged, bullied and shirked, mocked, mistreated, unjustified, misinformed, both discriminated and prejudiced, exploited, excluded, both rejected and refrained, neglected, both marginalized and isolated, both ganged and mobbed, enslaved, smothered, peer pressured in any negative manner, underestimated, negatively assumed, misrepresented, belittled, under misconception, misinterpreted, both non-sympathized and non-empathized, and even deceived, misled, scammed, and spammed. I and other autistic people also are deeper victims of any crimes and rioting. With all those negatives, it could happen to autistic people either physically, verbally, socially, both mentally or emotionally, psychologically, behaviorally, or even sincerely. People in the world would assume and believe that autistic people are nothing but hypocritical, troublesome, or felonious for nothing, especially among other people. For example, people would keep running away in a shy and wild manner from autistic people due to being scared and fearful of any signs or symptoms of their autistic behaviors. Personally, this includes myself. Additionally, most people would act extremely suspicious at any time and place of autistic people for behaving abnormally. At the same time, they would assume they are being deviant or dangerous and troublesome, and they would make them feel treated as nothing but any discomforting, bothersome, hypocritical, and felonious troublemakers among and to other people, especially along with their loved ones. Worse, most people who are extremely suspicious of autistic people, especially to me, at any time and place, assuming we are being deviant and troublesome or purposely want to call the police on us, making us feel like unexpected witnesses and suspects, and then being arrested and questioned by the police for any felon none of us ever committed on purpose. Safety and danger concerns and common negative assumptions have been going on with autistic people everywhere, especially out in public, such as public such as in public parks and beaches, schools, job sites, and even as commuters riding on any public transportation. Most people do not know, realize, or care that autistic people, especially me, are not troublesome, hypocritical, bothersome, or felonious. It is our autistic disorder controlling us. And no matter what I and people with autism do and say to other people, we still often get misunderstood and misinterpreted, misjudged, and mistaken as non innocent people. For example, when I try to do or say anything positive to people, personally, for me, they would want to take it offensively and negatively. Another example is if I either keep on rocking, doing abnormal behavioral gestures, or even talking to myself, I would scare and bother people, which I would never mean to do. The bottom line is that safety has been a grave worry for autistic people and our families, especially to me. Despite the threats to our safety, we lack the resources, support, and information that we would need to navigate our way around these threats. Autistic people deserve to be safe while living independently in the broader community. As friends and family members of people with autism, including me, we can play vital roles in helping autistic loved ones achieve goals that need to be done of being out of harm and danger. Excuse me. Autism, race, and discrimination. Excuse me. I must now, I now must mention autism and race. This is where safety and danger concern me and autistic people are more severe. With too many common negative assumptions, rejection, stigma, safety and danger concerns, and all other negative experiences to autistic people, especially to me, these matters are are deeply worse for victims who are born and raised as Black people, such as myself, including Asians and other certain continental ethnif- ethnicities to any of those dangers. First off, oh, excuse me. Furthermore, from the website Autism and Race, it matters with autistic people, including myself, who are all either Black, brown, indigenous, Asian, or mixed race people of color. Additionally, they have been dealing with people who have autism through the intersections of disability, justice, neurodiversity, and racial justice. And by fighting, building, and sustaining justice, healing, and liberation, no matter how deeply offensive or hurtful to most people in the world, the fact of this concern is that the Autism and Race website articulates their matters about autistic people this way. For those of us who are autistic and racialized, we often struggle to find representation in mass media academic work about autism or race, and the activist and advocacy movements that focus on autism, neurodiversity, disability rights, or racial justice. Most autism and autistic organizations, publications about autism, and broader neurodiversity campaigns are white, yet disabled Black and Brown students are most likely to be affected by the school to prison pipeline. Most US prisoners are disabled and Black or Brown. Racialized people are a global majority, which means that autistic people of color far outnumber white autistic people in the world. And the joint impact of race and disability severely increase the likelihood for hate crimes, police violence, all other forms of abuse, and repeated traumatization. Hmm. Still more. Wikipedia explained about discrimination in the media and culture of me and people with autism and entirely said this: representation of autistic people in media has perpetuated myths about autism, including characterizing autism as shameful and burdensome for family members, advertising the belief that there may be a cure for autism, and publicizing the long disproven arguments surrounding vaccines and autism. These myths are perpetuated in mass media as well as news media and social media. Stigmatization of autism can also be perpetuated by advertising from autism conversion organizations such as Autism Speaks, advertising wherein a mother describes feeling suicidal in front of her autistic daughter, or the NYU Child Study Center's advertisements where autism is personified as a kidnapper holding children for ransom. The advertising from Autism Speaks also brings up another form of discrimination against autistic children in particular face, which is subpar education. In the US, only one-third of autistic children in public schools receive special education services. Moreover, the autistic behavior known as stimming is often referred to as distracting, and the way autistic people naturally talk is often described as rude. Luckily, an organization in United Kingdom, England, called Ambitious About Autism has a blog entitled Explaining Racism gave us helpful norms about people with autism to better cultivate racial prejudice and discrimination. You see, many people nowadays are deep victims of prejudice and discrimination, but this matter is much deeper to me and people with autism, and being severely deeper victims about this as well. The blog started off this way. For many autistic people, autism is particularly important. Autism is a particularly important part of their identity. But alongside autism, they may have other important identities like race, heritage, and ethnicity. Although race identity, and privilege affect people every day, it can seem like a difficult topic to talk about with a child or young person. Our advice can support conversations about racism with all children and young people. Now, here are their list of the following advice with all children and young people, especially for everybody else. Talk about it honestly. No one is too young to learn about racial inequality, and it's incredibly important to address the topic. Autistic people can process and communicate in diverse ways compared to non autistic people. Sometimes tone and phrases can be easily misunderstood. So it's important you talk about these issues clearly so that young people can understand what racism is and the impact it has. Helping young people to understand the topic means they can process and communicate it. You can bring diversity into lots of different conversations. You can support the conversations with resources and videos of people talking about their experiences of racism in Britain. This will help give context for young people with autism. Be prepared for the puzzling questions. There are lots of resources that can support parents to understand the different elements of racism, identity, and privilege. Any child or young person can ask tough questions, so it's better to be prepared for them. Some issues are extraordinarily complex, so reiterating them in a way that's most proper for your autistic child is vital. You can use examples or talk about something they might have experienced or seen. For larger topics, lots of small conversations or spending more time over a longer period might be beneficial to understanding. Don't be afraid if your child says the wrong thing. Autistic people often have a very literal way of thinking. If you're in public and your child or young person says the wrong thing, don't hush them and silence their misunderstanding. Take this opportunity to talk about the issue. If they have a misconception, teach them about why what they said is inaccurate or offensive. Think consciously about bringing in an awareness of diversity, recognizing differences and using opportunities to bring in more diversity awareness will help your child to understand race, identity, and privilege. You could watch films with all blacks casts or suggest books by non-white authors. Be anti-racist. Many people are not or non-racist. Go one step further and be anti-racist. This means being active in your response to racism and speaking out against racial injustice. Set an example for your child or young person about how to appropriately stand up against racism. And finally, supply a safe space for your child to share how they feel. Discussing these issues can cause worry and anxiety for everyone. Some people will feel greatly confident sharing how they feel, while others may want a safe space to discuss their feelings and experiences openly. You can build their confidence by listening closely and supporting them to understand why they may feel that way. To end the discussion, reassure them of their own safety with you. Too many people in the world are just ignorant, discriminating, prejudiced, scornful, hateful, and naive because they neither know nor care about my life and other people's lives with autism and what we have been going through from our past to our present lives of success. And although people have been treating me and other autistic people positively, we would continue to have too many negatives, complications, difficulties, and all other drives, issues, and concerns by other people and society in the world every day. Anyway, moving on, hold on. Yes, autism and friendships. I and people with autism often have little to no social status, move involuntarily, and are separated from others or excluded from commonplace socializing or denied personal agency over our lives and are exposed to abuse and neglect. Also, I and people with autism are often segregated, denied personal agency over our lives, and exposed to social isolation. Speaking of this matter, Andrew Oliver, the founder and director of Do for One in New York City, said that people and I with disabilities have developed unwarranted fears by not having enough contact with marginalized people, even if unlimited funds are distributed and all the formal services through paid staff are in place. Many still have no way of connecting to their community to make friends. And this might seem insignificant, but the problems it creates are big and complicated. Additionally, Andrew Oliver mentioned the feeling and reality of me and disabled people being protected by society and having very few to no friends at all. He said that, as crucial as families are, it takes more than just relying on a faithful few. The help of friends and the surrounding community is so vital. But if I and people with disabilities are all tightly in a controlled setting where we are being protected from society and society is being protected by us, then we cannot meet anyone and grow as people in the ways that many who experience ordinary privileges have. Hmm. I and people with autism often have extraordinary little to no friendships and relationships. And even with seeing and meeting the same people often, they are not considered friends, but just acquaintances. Besides, both friendship and acquaintance technically have two different meanings. Excuse me. The word friendship is defined as relationships of mutual affection between people. It is a stronger form of interpersonal bond than an association and has been studied in academic fields such as communication, sociology, social psychology, anthropology, and philosophy. A friend is a person with whom one is on intimate terms and for whom one feels warm affection, a friend who can be trusted. On the other hand, the word acquaintance is defined as knowing someone a little about, but not being friends or anything. It is less intimate than a friend, such as a person in your class whose name you know, and that is it. And the one having extremely limited to no social connections between each other. An acquaintance is the opposite of a stranger. Overall, friendship is more intimate than acquaintanceship alone. Let me see. Our world gets shattered so often that it makes us all vulnerable to being wounded by broken relationships and pushed around by bureaucracies. But I and people with autism, as well with other disabilities, are far more likely to experience deeper wounds that often repeatedly so, such as stigma, segregation, being bullied, and so on. And the worst thing about it is that for years, there have been no laws or money being passed on that can address this concern as effectively as personal and freely given relationships. But these kinds of relationships rarely happen. Instead, most people with autism have only paid workers for their lives. If people with autism are vulnerable to at least a few freely given relationships from anyone in the valued world, it is less likely for them, especially me, to be afflicted with further wounding. There should be community programs to have open doors to people, especially me, with autism for many new possibilities we might not otherwise experience because these natural connections rarely happen independently. In fact, most people with autism live in professionally controlled settings, which serve as an actual barrier to genuine relationships forming. There have not been any community programs between two worlds that really connect, such as all people with disabilities. People and I with autism do not get help of learning to build healthy and positive friendships and relationships with other people. True and healthy friendships are rare and precious gifts, so we should never take them for granted. This reminds me of a saying from yours truly, Devon Ray Hillary. Money cannot buy love. It cannot buy friendship at all. They are priceless and they always will be. We should appreciate the people in our lives and let each other know how much we love one another and care for one another in our own special ways. Friendships are important for people and me with autism because individuals, us as individuals, and excuse me, let me start over. Friendships are important for me and people with autism because individuals and I, along with autism, friendships are especially important because they also provide opportunities to improve social skills practice ways to interact, and boost self confidence. Developing and maintaining friendships can be difficult for me and people with autism. Hmm. Autism is mostly a superpower. Autism will never go away. That is why there are types of autism treatment going on. Autism is a lifelong diagnosis, and there is no known cure. As a spectrum disorder, there are varying degrees of autism and levels of disability. Children with milder symptoms can learn how to manage the disorder more effectively than others. Autism, however, could mostly be a true gift. How? Well, from the National Autism Society in the United Kingdom, England, Colum McBridge says that autism can be a gift because it can help to give you that extra willpower and you can get into more things than non autistic people. Additionally, autism could mostly be a superpower. According from a New Zealand organization called Altogether Autism mentions the strengths and abilities of autism. Autistic people may display a range of strengths and abilities that can be related to them diagnosis, including learning to read at an exceedingly early age, known as hyperlexia, memorizing and learning information quickly, thinking and learning visually, logical thinking ability. They may excel, if able, in academic areas such as science, engineering, and mathematics, as they are technically and logically subjects that do not heavily rely on social interaction. Having an extraordinarily good memory, being able to remember facts for an extended period, being precise and detailed oriented, exceptional honesty and reliability, being dependable on schedules and routines, having an excellent sense of direction, be very punctual, strong adherence to rules, able to concentrate for prolonged periods when motivated, a drive for perfection and older, a cap- a capa- a capability for alternative problem solving, and a rare freshness of sense of wonderment. Like all superpowers, these abilities need to be properly nurtured and applied to appropriate areas so they can flourish. Most people and I living with autism are positive and not always problematic. Autism can be an advantage because it can help outperform others in auditory and visual tasks and do better on nonverbal tests of intelligence. And for me and most people with autism, autism is one of God's greatest satisfying gifts of all time. Autism treatments. Hmm, Just looking. Hmm. Pardon me, folks. I'm just looking for autism treatment. I just have a lot. I just had a lot of things to write about. Where is it? Autism and treatment. Mhm. 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 Hmm. Let's see. Oh, where is it? I just wrote a lot here. So, where did I put autism and treatment? Sorry about that, folks, for the delay. Autism and treatment. Hmm. Hmm. I guess I didn't write it in there. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, anyway, moving on to people with autism having rights. From Autism Society, they said that all individuals with autism are recognized as equal before and under the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law, including equal access to effective legal protection. The National Position Statement on Human Rights mentioned that the Autism Society believes in the full entitlement of human rights for people with autism, such as the following. Individuals with autism shall be treated with dignity and respect for their autonomy in making their own choices and decisions as it relates to their basic needs. Individuals with autism shall have the full benefit of legislation, policies, and laws that protect their rights to live without discrimination and vigorously promote full social, economic, and cultural inclusion. Individuals with autism and their representative organizations shall be actively involved and in consultation with the development and implementation of legislation and policies and other decision making processes concerning issues relating to persons with autism. Children with autism shall enjoy the full array of human rights and freedoms on an equal basis with other children, with the best interest of the child being the primary consideration, and with the right to express their views freely on all matters affecting them. Their views must be given due weight following their age and maturity on an equal basis with other children, and they must be provided with disability and age appropriate aid to realize that right. Individuals with autism should be afforded the right to choose where they live, including the right to live independently and take part fully in all aspects of life. Appropriate measures will ensure access on an equal basis with others to the physical movement, to transportation, to information and communication, including information and communication technologies and systems, and other facilities and services open or provided to the public, both in urban and rural areas. Persons with autism shall have the opportunity to choose with whom they live on an equal basis with others and are not obligated to live in a particular living arrangement. Every individual with autism has the inherent right to life. No individual with autism shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Individuals with autism shall be protected both within and outside the home from all forms of exploitation, violence, and abuse, including concerning gender identity. And lastly, individuals with autism should have access to a range of in home, residential, and other community support services, including personal help necessary to support living and inclusion in the community and to prevent isolation or segregation from. I, an individual with autism, should also have the right of being sincere victims of common negative assumptions, such as the examples I mentioned before concerning autism dangers and safety. People with autism, especially me, have the necessary just rights to be treated with sincere respect, love and care, fairness, understanding and sympathy, empathy, and even dignity. Moving on to most autistic people being kidults. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, most people, especially me nowadays with autism, are kidults who act like kids and do child things just like any other young child would do. That's what kidult means, folks. I'm just letting you know. Just a heads up. Okay. All autistic lives matter. I and autistic people are special because most of us can display a range of strengths and abilities that can be directly related to our diagnosis, such as learning to read at a very early age, known as hyperlexia, memorizing and learning information quickly, and thinking and learning visually. Another thing that makes most of us autistic people special is our special abilities being more common in autism than in other groups, with one study finding that a third of autistic adults showed superior skills in one or more areas by the parental report and on psychometric tests. Additionally, I and autistic people should have both freedom and independence and be treated humanely. No person, nor I with autism in the world, should have the right to be treated less than any younger or older human beings because I and they all have genuine feelings and sincerity. Our lives are important and they matter. So do mine. Furthermore, neither I nor they deserve to be treated in any negative or unjust way whatsoever by other people and society itself. Instead, though, just as I have, people with autism can overcome and achieve whatever they do or say in their lives. All people and I with autism should never be either overlooked or underlooked. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this live video is to all of those with and without autism, just as I do. Better yet, this live video is for all autistic people and non-autistic people who are either employees or non-employees, volunteers or non-volunteers, school students, refugees, immigrants, tourists, and celebrities. And please know this live video is not only for everybody to hear, watch, and listen, but a way to help change people's lives by learning and understand the reality of me and people with autism, especially the meaning of Autistic Day Pride, including the reality of autism itself. This live video is also for everybody else in the world who does not know anything about me and people with autism at all. Not even anything about Autistic Day Pride or any other holiday or events concerning celebrating autism. I and people with autism will live our lives and be ourselves, having fun and enjoyment, and making decisions and choices whether everybody likes them or not. Additionally, autistic people and I will go on with our lives until either the day of our deaths or until the end of time by the return of God. I reach out in love to all whom I meet and encourage you to reach out and encourage those who are hurting and suffering from autism, just as I have oftenly at times. I need to congratulate all the following types of people working and taking care of autistic people: families and friends, guardians, neighbors, travel trainers, teachers and paraprofessionals, advocates, supervisors, support workers, counselors and therapists, life coaches, doctors and nurses, specialists, medical enthusiasts, caretakers and caregivers, babysitters, and nannies, and even attorneys for people with disabilities. It has never been an easy task to take care of any autistic person. People and I with autism should be considered innocent victims of fate, psychologically and behaviorally ill patients, and incapable of taking part in any community. Our entire world and society should recognize me and all other autistic people as human beings and not be defined by the disorder we have. Just as people with different other disabilities, people and I with autism deserve to be embraced without stigma or stereotypes. Everyone has a contribution to make in our world and deserves the chance to realize and develop their spiritual, relational, and creative abilities. Connecting with those who are closest to an autistic person needs will far more likely bring about sustainable change over and above institutional care. Personal care is where love and common sense are central, or our advice will always be to look for simple solutions as personal and as near as possible. People and I with autism need families and communities which supply trust, security, and mutual affection. Communities are where we share common interests and resource connections. They are only in the context of communities in which individuals have beauty, worth, and vitality. We should add pricing strategies and be certain to merge with vital details such as value, length of services, and how they are unique they are. Oh, excuse me. Let me repeat that. Didn't say correctly. We should add pricing strategies and be certain to merge with vital details such as value, length of services, and how unique they are. Our world needs to be humbly aware of the problems people and me with autism face, just as people with other different disability and disorders. That knowledge prompts radical personal action to address those needs. Inclusion replaces exclusion as communities grow in the strength and diversity. Life on Earth is for sure tough, challenging, complicated, stressful, difficult, and overwhelming to cope with me and other people with autism. But that should never be a requirement or excuse for it to be either avoided, neglected, ignored, refused, or even despairing, discouraging, or unwilling to deal with. World Autistic Pride is vital because it is a reminder that people with autism have always been and will continue to be an important, treasured part of our human society. People with autism can and should feel proud of themselves and promote that being different and slash or autistic. I appreciate everyone of you for your attention and understanding and make me help celebrate this worldwide event of World Autism Pride. And for me to announce, as a matter of fact, create this live video to help learn and understand most of the facts, concerns, and matters and discussions about me and people living with and without autism. Well, that's all I could say today on this video. I was going to read the whole thing, but I really changed my mind, folks, of sticking to the most important parts which are vital to me. Therefore, sticking with the topics that are most vital to me, the most deep keys to, especially to my opinion, what Autistic Day Pride is really all about. But anyway, guys, I'm done with this live video for now, and I thank you for listening and watching. And with that being said and done, does anyone have any questions, thoughts, or feedbacks concerning of this live video of Autistic Day Pride? You can let me know in the comment section below of your own questions, comments, and feedbacks in the comment section. But for now, once again, I thank you for listening, and I wish everyone a happy Autistic Day Pride. And may God bless you all. Take care.